Welcome to the Advanced Sports Analytics Show here on Rotogrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender Ed, aka Blender HD, aka hopefully on top of you on the Draftkings leaderboards on Sunday, not this past Sunday. Most of my players got injured, so I had a horrible week. Join with me, as always, the man behind the model at Advanced Sports Analytics. It's Stuart Gibson, the king of correlation. And instead of going into last week, because all that, you could just put up the poop emoji, and that's what happened to me last week. But a lot of people have written into the show and commented about. We talk a lot about correlation, and the tool that you have on Advanced Sports Analytics allows you to show the correlation between two players in the sample size that you have, opposing offenses, opposing positions, and things like that. So I know it's week 10 and we've gotten around to like showing the tool that you reference so often. But Stuart, can you just go through exactly what these correlation matrices type look like if you go on ASA's site and use this tool?
Yeah, and so I think it's just also hyper relevant for the show. I mean, we discuss correlation a lot in terms of numbers on some range between -1 and +1, and it's not always clear like what that means or how that kind of manifests itself in the way players interact with one another in a game. And I think, as we've discussed before, we do feel that there are player specific nuances that cause correlations between players to maybe differ, even but when players are of similar position types. So I know you see there's a lot of good information about wide receivers correlate with quarterbacks by this metric, but understanding kind of what that looks like and how that manifests itself on like a week to week basis, I think is valuable. And we have made some updates to our player correlation app. I think a good example that I was looking at just this morning is Jared Goff.
You could leave it as Goof. You could leave Jared Goff's name as Goof. That's perfectly fine.
He won't show up in the system if spelled that way. But I was looking at kind of Goff and how he correlates with some of his receivers, and we can find just with a correlation matrix by looking at a matrix, we can see that Goff has this really strong 0.6 correlation with Kupp and some lesser correlation with Robert Woods. Pretty large sample sizes dating back to 2018. We also added a nice little column here that just shows the combined maximum that these two players have achieved on a single week. So, it's interesting that Kupp and Goff have this super strong correlation and have been able to achieve, a combined 82.5 points on a given week, where Goff and Woods, and I think of Woods and Kupp as week over week pretty similarly priced. Woods and Goff have this weaker correlation, and in the same week have never achieved a total, at least dating back to 2018. We're in 66, and I think it's just interesting to visualize that. So we added this plot tab that allows you to just view the different data points of each week and the combined or kind of coordinate outputs of these different players. So you have Goff on the x-axis and Cooper Kupp on the y-axis, and you can see just like so clearly that when correlation isn't causal, although I think you can make the strong case that like the quarterback is the cause of these quarterback wide receiver relationships. But in general, when Goff achieves some ceiling game, Kupp with pretty high consistency and with fairly minimal noise or variance achieves relatively high scores for him. As where a guy like Woods, we have instances kind of up here where we have Goff hitting a ceiling game and Woods, putting up these 30 plus fantasy totals. But, we also have instances where Goff is hitting these, 30, 40 point games, and like Woods is underwhelming, so to speak, kind of relative to his norm and maybe what we would expect from like a very strongly correlated receiver. So I think it's interesting. There's just a flatter, I think, relationship between Goff and Woods. Like a Goff ceiling performance doesn't imply as elevated of a Woods performance as you could make the case it does with Cup. And there's also just more noise. I mean, we have, these 20 to 30 ranges where, Goff putting up 25 points could mean anywhere from 30 points for Woods. But we've also seen Goff put up, 25 points and, have Woods fail to reach double digits. So I think it's an interesting way of looking at things. And, we always assume that like quarterbacks and wide receivers have this positive correlation, but we're also looking at Herbert this morning and how he relates to Keenan Allen. I think we talked about on last week how there's kind of, at least in a small sample, been this negative correlation between what you would expect to be super strong positive correlates. And we got a tiny sample with these two, but I just found it interesting that we do have this one game where Herbert just went for, I think, 41 and a half points, and Keenan put up, a solid 25, but he has exceeded 25 at points in this season. And, if we remove this data point, like there's this pretty strong negative trend almost where in games in which Keenan excels have actually correlated with, average at best. In this case, I mean, Keenan's best game was Herbert's worst game. In this case, and I know this was the Keenan injury game, but even kind of these points down here, I mean, these are just like really poor Keenan performances that are in sync with, not terrible Herbert performances. I mean, even this one, this one right here is like, at worst, an average performance for Herbert. So I think it's really interesting. We do have, the tool with kind of this singular output metric to encapsulate all the data points that we'd want to consider, but we have added this feature where you can actually look at the specific data points and really get a sense. Correlation is an attempt at being a linear measurement, and sometimes, like we even saw, I think with Woods, where there's kind of a point at which Woods has positive correlation with Goff, but then at a certain point, Goff reaching like an excessive ceiling doesn't really help Woods. So sometimes plotting it out allows you to see the non-linearities in players' relationships where correlation just as a singular metric might fall short because it is a linear measurement. So it attempts to apply a flat line or a straight line to a relationship that at times could be parabolic, it could be exponential, kind of increasing in return. So yeah, if you guys are interested, check it out. We will have it free open access for through the end of today. So if you want to use that with the Tennessee Indianapolis game, could be useful. I think there's some interesting players to check out. I'm going to be interested to see how some of those Tennessee receivers correlate with one another, how Henry fits into the mix, stuff like that. So yeah, check it out on the website.
Right. And if you're building your GPP lineups, obviously to increase your ceiling, you want as much correlation, that positive correlation that you could get, so that when one thing happens, another thing happens. And the perfect way to do so is to enter the FanDuel single entry series. It's still going on. Okay. So even if you missed it, I think this is the last week that you could get in if you haven't entered at all, because the top 4 combined scores for the weeks, because it's been running since week 6. So it's week 6 through 13. So if you missed any of the weeks, like all you have to do is weeks 10, 11, 12, 13, and those 4 scores, the top 5 combined within each buy-in tier. There's $5 contest, there's a $33 contest, there's a $100 contest. And if you're one of the top 4, you go to compete in a 6-man 20K final. If you're the top 2 finishers in each tier. And that's all sponsored by Rotogrinders. So go to the FanDuel single entry series. It's in the lobby right now on FanDuel. And obviously on this slate that we have coming up now, it's just, it's week 10 already. Do we have to say that, like, well, half the games have over a 50 total? I mean, this is normal NFL now. So seeing totals that are 46 are probably not as appealing. So to start off the top on this slate, we're going to talk about a couple of games. The first one is no doubt the most popular game on the slate. It's Buffalo at Arizona. It's a 56 total. 29 implied points for the Cardinals currently, 27 for the Bills. I'm going to assume, Stuart, that outside of maybe the Packers, who are a nearly 2-touchdown favorite, that both Arizona and Buffalo are probably second and third on your most likelihood of scoring the most points. And you're on mute.
So yeah, they're actually not. It's worth noting I haven't updated this since last night. So if there's been any morning moves, that could be the reason why. But I mean, we have Arizona's third most likely to score the most points. We have Buffalo down at the 10th most likely. Like I said, hasn't been updated since last night. So perhaps could be the reason why. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, the Arizona side is somewhat intriguing. It's really expensive. And like, I don't know, I think for the price point that you can get the Arizona stack of like Murray, Hopkins, Kirk, you could also move up to stacks that we have a higher top score probability on, Green Bay, most notably, New Orleans. Although I think there are some flaws in kind of the New Orleans stack is always tough to figure out because Breeze could go to so many different guys. You factor in Taysom Hill. I don't know. For me, there's just kind of better pricing on either side of Arizona. Either going, I guess, down in or relatively the same in price, but up in terms of team total to Green Bay, or going slightly down in projected team total, but also down in price to a team like Los Angeles or Las Vegas or Tampa or something like that. I think another concern with the Arizona side is just that historically, like Hopkins and Murray, and I know we don't have a huge sample on them, but they haven't really correlated well. I think they actually have over the season a negative 0.16 correlation, and like those are two really expensive pieces where if that game is going to go off and you want exposure to that stack, specifically those two guys, you really need both those guys to put up massive games. I mean, their max combined so far this year is about 70 fantasy points, and I think when you're spending up that high at kind of those two positions, for me, I would prefer to spend up on a pair of guys who just have better positive correlation. I think like Rodgers and Adams are comparable in price point, and they just also have this exceptional correlation where the explosion of Devonte Adams or the explosion of Aaron Rodgers, implies the ceiling performance of the other, while an exceptional Kyler game doesn't necessarily imply a standout Hopkins game. I mean, we've seen Kyler put up his biggest totals as a rusher. We've seen Christian Kirk take some of these highly valuable touchdowns away from Hopkins. I guess for me, there's just better correlative properties and better team total for a pair like Rodgers and Adams compared to Murray and Hopkins.
Well, I think the most popular in this game is going to be Allen and Diggs. I think people are looking at this game, rightfully so. If you were to project this out, Buffalo has one of the highest pass rates in the league, especially on first down. Arizona is one of the quickest teams in the league, runs the most plays. So, obviously the total's 56. I think Allen plus Diggs is the chalk, not necessarily Murray. Like Murray on his own will be there. I mean, we may see naked Murrays. We may see Murray Kirks. I mean, we may. I think it's the stack is more likely to be used on the Buffalo side. Something like Allen plus Diggs plus Kirk, like something like that. Maybe not Hopkins. You want to keep the price down, but I think from a lineup construction dynamic, I'm more likely to roster Allen with John Brown than I am with Diggs, only because of Mike Davis. So Mike Davis is 4,000, right? So like he's going to be uber mega chalk. I mean, the Christian McCaffrey's out. He's minimum price on DraftKings. In it with the passing game role, like he could be 60% owned in GPPs. And then we have Allen plus Diggs is probably the most popular stack. Like at least two. I mean, you may get 3+1s. You could get stuff like that. But as far as just the quarterback to the wide receiver, well, in order to pay up for Allen and Diggs, you're probably going to have to play a 4K running back, which is Mike Davis. So most of the lineups that have Allen and Diggs have Davis. So if I were to play Allen plus Brown, even with Mike Davis, I can now pay up for like Devontae Adams in a non-stack as a one-off and hope Diggs, like Allen gets there through 2 rushing touchdowns and John Brown has a 100-yard game. Diggs is still sitting there with 18 points, but he's unnecessary. Like now, like that you bust those stacks, yet the Bills still do well. I think that's more of the route as far as in large field tournaments that I'm more likely to go if I play Mike Davis in that lineup. So it's like if you want to play Allen plus Diggs, maybe you fade the quote free square of the week. I mean, Mike Davis projects like probably probably the best comparable to salary as we've seen the entire year. So I'm not necessarily saying to fade him, but think in terms of what do your lineups look like if you're going to play Mike Davis as well as stack the chalkiest games, and not just don't stack the chalkiest game. Find something that's somewhat different. We have other 7K wide receivers that are going to go less owned than Stephon Diggs. We have him currently at 24% ownership. There are other 7K wide receivers that are going to be half of that or a third of that could easily ceiling. And Allen could still have a good game without Diggs having a 30+ point game.
Got it. So you think kind of the chalk build or construction will be super cheap at Davis using those savings to get up to a expensive quarterback receiver stack. And so you're interested in kind of flipping that and going with some sort of cheap receiver stack, paying up at running back.
Or paying up at other wide receivers. I could still use wide receiver flex. I'm not saying we're going to get to some vomit stacks that we could use, but even when you use the vomit stacks, you're probably going to be paying. You're doing that so you could pay up for a premier running back and like 2 premier wide receivers, one in the flex or something like that. So I don't think you're losing anything if you play the high price quarterback or if you play the low price quarterback. I'm just saying for this specific Buffalo stack that once I play Allen plus Diggs from Davis with Davis in there and then maybe run it back with Christian Kirk, it's like it seems like I'm like half my lineup is like the stone chalk. And unless I'm going to get really weird elsewhere, maybe I just find different pieces in this game. Obviously, the leverage play in this game is playing Zach Moss, right? We have to see obviously what Chase Edmonds, what Kenyon Drake's status is going to be, because Edmonds is going to be chalky if he's the only running back that's pretty much going to get touches there. But Edmonds is kind of negatively correlated to Murray anyway. So because obviously the goal line carries. So like I'm not necessarily concerned about Edmonds when it comes to this stack. I'm just more concerned about Allen plus Diggs plus Davis in my lineup going like, is this the best way to be? Should I try to be different elsewhere, or should I just try to be different in the game so I could at least I could still stack the game, but not be like not have my lineup duplicated by 20% of the entries in the contest.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess the Buffalo side is, at least in my estimation, a little more reasonably priced than the Arizona side. So,
but the next game, I think the next game may go under owned. The next game is right there, 55.5 total. It's the Seahawks at the Rams. The Rams are favored by 2 points, 28.75 implied total. Seahawks 26.75 total. I'm going to assume, I said it before, I mean, you had Buffalo 10th on your list. I think that's quite low for a 27 implied total. I mean, what does it look like for the Rams and the Seahawks?
Yeah, so we have, let's see, we have the Rams 4th highest behind Green Bay, New Orleans, Arizona. It's really pretty tight in this kind of middle tier. Like Buffalo at 10th most likely to score the most points, and Arizona at third most likely are only separated by 2 percentage points. So there's this kind of tier of like Los Angeles, Raiders, Steelers, Bucks, Browns, Seahawks, Bills, where it's just like super tight and there's not a whole lot separating them in terms of likelihood of scoring the most points. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think like Los Angeles is well priced. I mean, they are not hardly any less likely to score the most points than Arizona. They've got a quite comparable total, and they're cheaper. There's I think as we noted at the top of the show, like really great correlation between Cup and Goff. Woods I think has I think of as more of like kind of an upside type player, but his upside is I'm not going to say random, but it's just less less tied to the performance of Goff. And for stacking purposes, I think focusing on the guy who stands to have the greatest relative chance of reaching his ceiling when Goff reaches his ceiling. To me, like Cup looks like that guy. And like to me, this is a pretty pretty good spot. Like I think just the pricing is pretty decent. There are some cheaper options that have totals slightly below Las Vegas, but if you want to get access to kind of this top group of teams, to me, the Rams seem like the cheapest option to do that. And aside from maybe Rodgers to Adams, have the best QB to receiver correlation. I guess the fear that you'd be concerned about is that Los Angeles can be quite run heavy when ahead, if given the option. So I definitely think you want to be cognizant of bringing back, guy on the Seattle side. I mean, I think that goes without saying, but really, making sure that we have some strength on the Seattle side. And do we have any word on if Carson's going to play? Like, I think that could come in the form of even, Seattle leading, and if kind of Russ, Lockett, Metcalf is going to be a potentially chalky combination of players, maybe build around the script that the total holds, but Seattle actually is playing from ahead, not Los Angeles, such that maybe Carson has more upside or more opportunity to be involved, and this Los Angeles side is forced into a more pass heavy game script than they would like to be, I guess, assuming if they were winning.
Right. I think you expressed the concerns, but that's to me, I think the more appealing side is the Seahawks side based on the context of the slate. The Rams are favored in this game. I don't know what's going to impact ownership more, that people are scared that the Rams are run heavy, or that the Seattle secondary is so bad that they're just going to exploit it regardless. I mean, because it's like, oh, Seattle could, the Rams could throw all over the Seahawks, but I mean, do they need to if they're going to run the ball 60% of the time? But I think Russell Wilson is going to be, I think most of the ownership is going towards Allen and Murray in that game. I mean, Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson. So, I mean, it's not like he's going to come in unowned, but we have Russell Wilson projected owned at single digits. Goff, we have more owned in this game than Wilson. And then plus we have the whole wide receiver cornerback crap with Jalen Ramsey and with DK Metcalf. And Metcalf's probably going to be single digit again. I mean, we saw it with last week. Oh, you can't play him against Tre'Davious White. And they don't realize that DK Metcalf is just a freak of nature. So it doesn't even matter. So I take a look at this and go, well, I'd rather the Rams be ahead in a competitive game, in a 3-point, 7-point type of game, and then play instead of playing Goff and Woods and Cup, and spend 6K receivers. I think it's compared to the ownership, it may be more beneficial to play a skinny single stack with Wilson plus either Lockett or Metcalf, then either Cup or Woods, and then if the Rams do start running the ball more, like it kind of sucks all of like all the Goff ceiling, it sucks off of, and it's going to suck off of the double stack ceiling. Like Kupp could get there, Woods could get there, but as they're running the ball more, like both of them at the same time, probably not. And lean more towards that only because of ownership. If you told me the Seattle side was more owned, then I'd be, yeah, Goff is cheaper, right? And Kupp and Woods are cheaper, but they're also more owned. Kupp, we have projected owned is 17%, Woods at 13%. We have Lockett at 16%. So, I mean, this game is still being owned, but probably not owned at the level of Arizona and Buffalo. But when I see DK Metcalf at 7,600 for 8% ownership, when you could play tight ends, you could play Jacob Hollister, you could play Gerald Everett, you could. I mean, if you're going to double stack, I'd rather double stack with some cheap tight end or Josh Reynolds or something, so my stack size doesn't get exorbitantly expensive. And I think that's a way to play a high total, somewhat chalky, but not that chalky game in a somewhat different way. And you could still play Mike Davis in that one.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think it's a game where you definitely want to structure your kind of game stacks around some game script. If you're building around Los Angeles being run heavy, plan accordingly, and vice versa. There's just some teams that Los Angeles in particular, Seattle, I think has been less. I guess their plan of attack has been less tied to the competitiveness of the game this year than in previous years, but Los Angeles really more so than Seattle. There's potential for it to for game script to be highly impactful and kind of the way you'd plan for game stack.
Okay, next game on the docket. 51 total. Broncos at the Raiders in the Dome in Las Vegas. It's a 28 implied total for the Raiders, 23 for the Broncos. Waller is expected to be the chalkiest tight end on the slate. So I'm going to go here and pull up our preliminary ownership from Jamino's hamster wheel. And yeah, basically the tight ends are the owned pieces in this game. We may get Lock and Carr, may get, for cheap quarterbacks, they'll be like the popular cheap guys, but still they're coming in at 3% and 5% ownership because obviously you can only roster one quarterback. So that's quarterback ownership is kind of like you don't have to care that much about. But as far as the skill position players, like Jacobs 9%, Judy 7%, and then like nothing. And this game has a 51 total. I know that these aren't the most appealing offenses, and like the Raiders could spread the ball around. I mean, outside of Waller, I'm not a big fan of single stacking Carr with just Waller, but you could do it, and then running it back with a Judy or a Patrick or something like that. It seems like this is a game I may want to target because it was going to be underowned, but it'll be very hard to figure out what pieces. To me, I see Jacobs at under 10% being like, if I'm going to play anyone in this game, like, why don't I just play Jacobs as a one-off and then not worry and then hope he gets 30 carries and just runs over the Broncos?
Yeah, I mean, I think he makes sense as kind of the most likely individual skill player, to achieve a ceiling game. I mean, I'm pretty interested in Las Vegas side.
Who do you stack with? Tell me. You have Waller and then who? And then who? Aguilar, Ruggs, Edwards, Renfro? I mean, like who's your wide receiver? Like, how does Carr understand that Carr is cheap? So it's like, I don't need 30 points from Carr. I could get by with 25. So do you think there's a need for one of the wide receivers? Because let's say Carr throws for 300 yards. Waller gets 2 touchdowns in 100 yards. And all the other receivers are just like 4 for 50, 4 for 50, 4 for 50 spread around. Like, it's not like they're all cheap. I mean, Ruggs is 4,500. Aguilar's 4,900. I mean, Edwards he's probably going to be the 4th wide receiver. It's like, hey, they look like a cool vomit stack to me. It's just seems like the Colts to me. Like, how do I pick out the guy that's going to do well?
Yeah, I mean, Aguilar would be the guy I'd be in favor of. He so far this year has had good correlation with both Carr and Waller. Like there, uh, are ways, have been ways at least so far this year that Waller and Aguilar both get there. Uh, he's got pretty solid 0.38 correlation with Carr. So, I have like good confidence in that if Carr has an exceptional game, puts up 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, feel reasonably good that Aguilar will have at least an at value or above value game. So I don't know. To me, he would be the guy that I would pull as like a double stack with Waller and Carr. On the Broncos side, yeah, I mean Fant has had a super stable role really all year until last week. Judy has been on the rise. I mean Tim Patrick saw a decent amount of targets last week and was kind of the only Denver guy. I mean, Locke, Fant, Judy all had a really big ownership boost last week. Tim Patrick's ownership stayed more or less flat, and there have been times this year where he has been the leading receiver over Judy. We could be seeing. I think it's pretty common for some of these rookie receivers to really ascend in the second half of the season. So we might be seeing that with Judy. But if he's going to be significantly higher ownership than Tim Patrick, which I assume he will be, I think that could be a bring back route to go.
Well, because you're not bringing it back with Fant. You're not playing a double tight end lineup.
Yeah, no, I guess not. You're right.
Right. I mean, to me, that's not optimal. That's why I look at this and go, like, how do I need to play in a wide receiver that is either on the Raiders. That's why, to me, the skinny stack makes more sense. Carr, Waller, Judy, or Patrick, or at least with Locke. See, because now the thing is, you can't do Locke Fant because the run back would be Waller. So, like, it seems like Fant is like the odd man out, and he's going to be 13. We projected 13% owned. Like the positions don't line up. It's like, unless you want to play a double tight end lineup, but I tend to stay away because the tight ends don't have the highest of ceilings typically at the position. So, like, I feel like if I want to take shots on this game and I want to try for Ruggs and Aguilar, I feel like I need to build 20 lineups of just this stack, and which is fine. You just have to invest. You basically have to invest more money into it, and I'm much more likely to like. Can I get away with if I'm playing 100 lineups? Can I get away with 10 skinny stacks of this game on each side, rather than try to just like nail the Hunter Renfrow 2-touchdown game that may or may never happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think for me, the one knock against one of the knocks against Las Vegas side is that I think there are real ceiling concerns with Carr and like Waller. I think has a nice ceiling, but like Aguilar hasn't proven to have a particularly high ceiling as part of this offense. Carr in his career with Las Vegas has always been a guy who I feel like frequently median projects pretty well, but he rarely like Locke, I think we saw last week, has clearly the higher ceiling than Carr, even though Carr might median project a little better. And for tournament purposes, I think lack of a ceiling is a fair concern, and maybe one reason to not be as high on this game as the total would suggest. But for me, just the pricing on the Las Vegas side in particular, relative to team total, is just really, really cheap. And I think makes it worth some consideration for me.
Right. You just have to realize that Carr and Locke are not the greatest of quarterbacks, and maybe they'll turn into pumpkins. Right? They could turn into pumpkins. And talking about pumpkins, autumn is in the air, and Manscaped is here to ensure you don't carve your pumpkins when you're grooming. And I know it's past Halloween, by the way. I know that this copy is like 12 days old. Why isn't there a turkey reference in here yet? It feels like it should. We're doing Halloween copy still, but of course when they're talking about pumpkins, that they mean your boys downstairs, right? Your balls, right? In fact, Manscaped is on a mission to change the way you approach caring for your balls. And great news, they just released their products in the UK, Canada, and Australia. Like I expected turkey metaphors in this ad read. I had all the jokes planned for turkey and stuffing, right? Don't blow your stuffing, right? We can't don't even try to insinuate what that means. But you need to take care of your balls. You need to take care of your private parts if you're a man or female or whatever. I don't want to get, now I'm going to get into trouble for this. Okay, let's see if I can get through this ad read without offending anyone. Let's not forget it's the best trimmer for your butt, balls, and your body, like the Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer. It offers a replaceable ceramic blade with advanced skin-safe technology, which helps reduce grooming accidents, right? Especially people coming over for Thanksgiving, right? You don't want to be sitting there going, like, what's that blood spot on in your crotch area? Like, you don't want to explain that to your crazy uncle, right? They also have the new Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer that uses the same skin-safe technology when you're trimming those delicate nose hairs of yours. The crop care kit includes the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, right? You got to smell fresh for Thanksgiving Day. You're probably doing Thanksgiving over Zoom, right? Right? It's going to get to the point when is anyone going out for Thanksgiving for this year? Because obviously, the cases are going up. So maybe you do it for your significant other, whatever, and just like if you have an accident or maybe your balls are a little bit stanky, right? You just do it over Zoom, so you don't even bother going. So you should still do it for yourself, right? Because you have the Crop Cleanser body wash, a full body wash that you could also use on your hair, not at the same time, on all forms of your hair. Don't transfer from one hair to the other hair. Like, just get more. That's why you get more of the product. So don't try to conserve this. Crop Mop ball wipes. You never know when an opportunity strikes, so you should always be prepared. That's right. And it even says here, plus you don't want to stink when you sit around that Thanksgiving dinner, right? What's that smell? It better be the cooking, because it's not me. If you suffer from stank foot or stand on your feet all day, then I have a product for you. The Foot Duster Foot Deodorant. It's a free gift as part of the package. The cooling tea tree oil offers a pleasant experience for the stankiest feet and allows you to take your shoes off in confidence, even if you're on Zoom for your Thanksgiving dinner. The Manscaped Refined Cologne is a cost-effective way to smell clean and fresh for your date, even on Zoom. They smell fine for your pets, even fine. So they don't run away because of your ball sweat, right? The Crop Cleanser hair and body wash was designed with aloe vera and sea salt to leave your skin clean, fresh, moisturized, and reinvigorated. These formulations are all vegan, cruelty-free, dye-free, sulfate-free, paraben-free. I don't know what that is, but it's not in there. So your manhood, it is in good hands. You can get all of this. Get 20% off and free shipping at Manscaped, with a D at the end, .com. With the code ROTO, ROTO. Get it just in time for your Thanksgiving dinner, right? Get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code ROTO. Make your balls a priority this fall. The next time, by the way, I know Devin's producing the show. Let's see if let's see if we can get some Thanksgiving copy or then Christmas copy. It feels like we're still at Halloween. It still feels like I'm decorating and putting a costume on my balls for this reason. It doesn't feel. I don't feel like completely transparent of like no now that we're going into Thanksgiving. So there, a lot of people apparently like my Manscaped read. So I tried being extra creative, and based on what I said, we may never get them as a sponsor again.
We as a society skip Thanksgiving now. It used to be like Halloween and then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas preparation didn't start till after Thanksgiving. But now it's like, oh, all right, November 1st, put up your lights, December to Remember sales event, the whole thing. So, they might just have to fast forward right to Christmas.
That's fine. I want Christmas references. I need my sexual innuendos and my genitalia references to be up to date with the holidays. There was no Columbus Day ad read. There was no Veterans Day ad read. Why wasn't there a Veterans Day ad read? The people at Manscaped need to the copywriters there need to come on. We need new stuff to talk about. But to talk about new stuff, let's get to the next game. This game has actually come up in total. It opened at 48. Now it's up to 50 and a half. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Carolina Panthers. Tampa Bay with a 28 implied total. Panthers with a 22.5 total. Obviously, the chalkiest player on the slate is in this game, Mike Davis, with Christian McCaffrey out and Draftkings falling asleep at the wheel, thinking that he's never going to get injured again. Priced down Mike Davis to minimum price at 4,000. But on the Buccaneers side of the ball, we're not going to see really much owned for 28 total. I mean, I'm going to look here. I know Brady had a horrible game, the past time out against the Saints. But like no one in this game is owned. I mean, outside of Davis, even like Anderson and Moore, like they're owned more than any Buck. Godwin 6%, Fournette 2%, Evans 2%. Out of 28 total, I'm going to assume that the Buccaneers are high on the list. Is the issue with the Bucks that now with Antonio Brown in the mix, that like Brady could be a fine, obviously he doesn't rush the ball. So compared to like Murray and Allen and those guys, his ceiling could be capped. He's more in the line of like an Aaron Rodgers type. Do you just think that it's hard to stack with Brady because like he could get his ceiling and then none of the receivers can because he spread it around to 8 different guys?
Yeah, I would guess that is the concern because I mean, God, the Tampa Bay side is so cheap. Godwin is 6, Evans is 6'2". Like, when's the last time we've seen both those guys combined to be priced that low? And I mean, I think we discussed a while ago, like, Marvin Jones and Galladay is a pair that when at full price, we don't really like to consider in the same lineup, but when their prices come down, it is a little more palatable. I mean, is it crazy to think that we could, even though, Godwin and Evans have modest negative correlation, that at, combined 12.2K that, they might be able to fit into the same lineup? I guess though, yeah, the concern is like Tampa Bay has become New Orleans-esque in that they really do spread it around. Like touchdowns could go to Gronkowski, who has, had an increased role, I guess, over the course of the year. And, now you insert Antonio Brown into the mix. Yeah, I mean, there's not like any of those receivers that are just, the guaranteed guy if Brady goes off. But I mean, at the price point and for the game total, I think it's worth taking some shots. If people are going to completely avoid the Tampa Bay side because they can't, feel confident about any one of those guys being, clear like wide receiver one. I don't know. I think it's worth taking some shots.
I also think the secondary correlations. I think this game, if Mike Davis, we currently have projected initial ownership projections of 58% in large field GPPs. But with all these other guys single digit, like you're going to see Mike Davis one-offs, non-correlated to anyone. And Mike Davis is a pass catcher. So it's not like he's game script independent. So obviously leverage point would be taking like Robbie Anderson instead. Like fading Mike Davis, take Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore or Curtis Samuel even. But I think even if you're not going to play Brady, like why not have lineups? If you're going to play Davis, play Godwin, play Evans. Like pick your poison. I'm not saying the one over the other. Play Gronkowski, fine. Fill your tight end spot. Since tight end tends to be a wasteland, like Phil, and just if you're going to play Davis, why don't you play Gronkowski in that lineup? So I think that this is a good opportunity to build chalky Mike Davis lineups that now differentiate you while being correlated with the other side. That obviously if big plays and touchdowns get scored, more plays are available and more points are available to Mike Davis. So why not just take advantage of that?
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good approach. I mean, I think I am just given the price interested in trying some Tampa Bay stacks. I know that you're dealing with potentially crowded receiving core, but at the prices they're at, I mean, there's some real upside for really any of those Tampa Bay receivers, and potentially even combination or pair of those receivers. So
Well,
think
let's
worth.
go to the complete opposite type of team from the Buccaneers. The next game on the docket, it looks like the last game that has a 50 plus total. It's the Jaguars at the Packers. 50 total. Packers are currently favored by 13.5. They have a 31.75 implied team total. The Jaguars have an 18.25 team total. And we're going to see two of the chalkiest expensive options at their positions in Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams. But like, who's more condensed? What offense is more condensed than the Packers? I mean, between Rodgers, Adams, and Jones, I mean, that's where all the ownership is, but that's where all the points are. So we currently have Adams projected at 30% ownership, Jones at nearly 30% ownership. Obviously, it's easy to fit one of them in with Mike Davis at 4K, and you may get some other cheaper value options that you could find. Is this game stackable? Is James Robinson as a nearly 2 touchdown favorite on the other side, 6,600, worth a ceiling shot? Is Chark worth a ceiling shot? I see this game as you take Adams or you take Jones in lineups. You don't play them together, and you hope that, I mean, because they're expensive. I mean, we're talking about Devontae Adams at 9,000, and all these ceilings have to do with touchdowns. And we have Alan Lazard probably back. Tanyan could steal a touchdown. Jamal Williams will be back, so maybe Jamal Williams gets 40% of the work, and Aaron Jones, he could still get there in 60% of the snaps. So I take a look at this and go, if they're going to be 30% owned each, I don't know how you're playing it for raw points. I mean, I understand playing both. They're good plays. It's just a matter of, like, do I play Rodgers, Adams, Chark? Like, it doesn't seem like the type of game that, if the Jags are competitive, like, how does Aaron Jones get there?
Yeah, it probably doesn't, or he factors in a big way in the receiving role. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like a game where probably just have to be willing to eat one of those pieces of chalk, either Jones or Adams. And, because I do think they figure a strong plays with, high projectability and, projectability for usage. So I think, yeah, just eat the chalk on one of those two guys and try to stack up a different game.
But I mean, how about playing Rodgers plus? I mean, you have to assume Rodgers plus Adams is going to get owner. I mean, Rodgers is coming in projected at 7-8% ownership. The problem is like, who do I play on the other side of the game? Like,
Sure.
who? Like, to me, if this game is competitive, like it actually turns out to be competitive, I'd almost rather stack from the others. I'd almost rather play the cheaper side and then use Jones or Adams as my run back.
Okay.
Not saying I'm going to do that. I'm just saying, if it is I don't see the Jaguars hitting a ceiling, any of their guys hitting a ceiling, unless it's a closer game than expected.
Yeah.
Unless this is the type of game where it's like, screw the run back, just play the stack and just move on with your life.
Yeah, I mean, it could be one of those games. I mean, I think we had a similar game with New York, Kansas City, and like the New York bringback was feasible because there were 3 to 4K pieces on the other side that projected for pretty decent volume. On the Jacksonville side, like, you have Chenault, but he hasn't been getting much usage lately. And then, the pieces that you would want to bring back are not, 3.5K, Denzel Mims. They're, full price Chark, full price James Robinson. I don't know. I mean, like, Chris Conley could be worth a dart throw. He, had a big usage week last week and is kind of fits that mold of being super cheap. But I think there's less confidence in like Chris Conley having, full kind of high volume role than we had with like a Denzel Mims or Barrios getting a full usage role. So yeah, I mean, I think could be like, you could go just Adams, Rodgers, skinny, and then figure, they get there in 3/4 and not bring anyone back. I don't know. For me, I think I prefer to just take Adams or take Jones, and then look to stack elsewhere.
Okay, so now we got the bucket of 6 games that have under a 50 total. There's one appealing off the board vomit stack that I like, and I know that there's one that you like. I'm assuming the one that, because a lot of times we align, and I don't know if we're going to align on this one, on these two. I think I'm more on your side on this one, and you may be completely wacky. You think I'm wacky for another one. I'm assuming that with the Browns and the Texans game, it opened at 54. It's now down to 49. So it's come down 5 points. That if Mayfield, who's off the COVID list, I'm assuming he's going to start. That like Mayfield plus Landry plus Hooper, and then like Duke Johnson on the other side or Cooks on the other side, like that to me that makes for a natural mid-range stack where then you could just play Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs. You could play Mike Davis in that lineup, Aaron Jones. You could essentially play, just jam your lineup with like the chalk, and if the stack gets there, like you win, right? I'm assuming you're on the Browns, even though the total has come down, but they still have a 26 and over 26 implied total, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the total per dollar is quite strong. Super cheap stack if you look at like Mayfield, Landry, Hooper. Typically I don't like doing running back plus quarterback, but Hunt I think is one of these running backs that makes more sense as part of a stack than others. I wouldn't say he's like Camara level, sensibility for stacking with QB, but yeah, it's super cheap. There is pretty decent in a small sample a correlation between like Hooper and Landry. I think so. There's good correlative properties there. I mean, the concern, and like I think we've discussed on this show Cleveland before, is just like, man, I mean, their total always just seems to be higher than our comfort level with in playing them, and like the ceiling on really all three of those guys, Mayfield, Landry, and Hooper, is just super limited. Like
They
even
just tend to run the ball so much
yeah,
that no one, Landry can't get a 30-point game because they're just not throwing enough. You need to hope in this game that there's some broken play or the Texans get out to a 2-touchdown lead like that. I mean, obviously, that's how ceilings get opened up.
yeah.
But from a natural standpoint, Cleveland, if they're ahead, they would just rather just not have Mayfield throw the ball.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I think when I was looking, I kind of fill out my chart and data in a certain order. Ceiling is one of the later things I get to, and I first just start at like team total, blowout risk, salary, historic ownership, and correlation. And like by those metrics, Cleveland just looks really great. And then I started kind of adding up, possible ceilings for this trio of players, and I was like, "Ugh, like that's really not very good." And I know they're super cheap, but I mean, like we have them as a ceiling of like 50 fantasy points. It's just like no matter how cheap they are, that's just not a very good ceiling for a double stack. So
Well, maybe you're not going to like my favorite vomit stack of the week.
I might, because I still got some games left that I like and I'm interested in. So go for it.
Okay. So, you want to talk about multiple ones? Okay. I was going to bring up uh, probably the cheapest stack for the implied total.
Yeah,
In
well,
comparison to the implied total. It's Miami Dolphins, 25.25 implied total. It's a 48 total in the game. Chargers, 22.75 implied total. Tua is under 6K. Parker is 5,000. Jakeem Grant is 3,000. The run back's Keenan Allen. When does DraftKings send me the $1 million?
yeah, no, I mean the stack kind of builds itself. I mean, we were talking about at the top of the show how Keenan has negative correlation with Herbert. So like to me, that negative correlated or at least loosely correlated receiver is just the perfect guy to bring back, not stack. So I think Keenan is just like the ideal fit for a guy who, at least so far, the data suggests it's not really him plus Herbert isn't as viable of a stack as you would think, even though both players have had really great games. They seem to have not aligned so far, and maybe that's just noise. So if that's the case, like great, like just give me Keenan and I'll drop Herbert. Yeah, it's super cheap. I mean, Tua Jakeem Grant figures to be in a decent role. You got Parker. No, I'm totally with you. I mean, I got 3 stars next to this one. I think that's a solid stack for the price, for the total.
And you could always use Gazeki. I mean, like if you want to fill it, instead of using Grant, you could use Gazeki in a tight end spot. Opens up another wide receiver one-off. And I also think that Keenan Allen at 7,100. I mean, he'll be owned. I mean, we haven't projected 17% owned, but with the other games, you'll see Lockett and Metcalf, you'll see Diggs, you'll see Hopkins, you'll see Devontae Adams. I mean, there are more owned, higher price wide receivers. That I even think that Keenan Allen's ownership is going to be lower than 17 or 18%. He could come in at 13, 14%. And I think and then Grant and Parker are going to be owned also. So, I mean, we have Grant at 13%, Parker at 9%. So it's not like this is like off the board, but like the stack, like I don't think people are going to stack the game. I mean, this is the type of thing where they're going to play one-offs, but I think the fear in this game is that the game is going to move too slow, right? But you play for a busted play. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm going to invest a ton of money into these stacks, but I think I'm more likely. I feel like I could predict the ceilings of the Dolphins better than I can the Raiders. So, like, I think the Raiders are in a better spot. But like outside of Waller, who knows? It seems like here on the Dolphins, if like Tua could rush a touchdown. I mean, he could have 40 yards rushing and a touchdown. Parker could, I mean, they're so 3,000 for Jakeem Grant. He could be in the winning GPP lineup with 12 points in this stack with no problem. And I just think it builds itself. Is there any other stacks that you're looking at?
Yeah, I guess not really. I had just a little star next to Pittsburgh. Just I think they have a decent total relative to price, but I think some real correlation concerns between like really any 3 of those receivers. It just seems to be one, but not the others, at least so far. And I think that makes it a difficult game to stack up.
We
Let's
also have the Saints at a 29.25 implied total, but to me, like, how do you stack this game with to me, like you're playing Kamara or Thomas as a one-off and just like
yeah,
hopefully they get there because Thomas is cheaper now at 7,400 and Kamara is going to be low owned because he's 8,200. People are going to pay down at running back or pay up for Aaron Jones. They're paying up for wide receivers. So I think, I mean, Kamara offers like price and position leverage, but I don't think Thomas is going to be that popular. I mean, he'll be owned. So like taking a look at ownership that we currently have, we have Thomas at 7%. Not well, currently it says 18% Kamara, 7% Thomas, but I believe in our ownership projections now we have Drake in and not Edmonds. I think if Edmonds is in, it totally eliminates the Kamara ownership. It's hard. Like there's so many better quarterback options with ceilings than Breeze. I
yeah.
know it's at home. I know it's in a dome. But I to me, secondary stack, you play Kamara, you play Ayuk. Okay, I could see that. You play Thomas, you play McKinnon or something, or you do something, like 1-1 type of thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm assuming the Saints are up on your list. It's just it's kind of hard. It's hard to 3+1 this.
Definitely. I mean, they're the second highest likely team to score the most points. But yeah, I mean, like New Orleans and Tampa Bay have a lot of similarities in that they have, statue quarterbacks that can really throw to just a whole bevy of receivers who, we like if we had, really high confidence that we like for stacking purposes. Like if we had really high confidence that if the quarterback goes off, it's likely to be through the receivers. Like, I mean, look at that New Orleans game last week in the Sunday night. I mean, Breeze had like 3 or 4 touchdowns and threw to like Josh Hill and
Troutman got a touchdown finally.
Did Cook get one? I mean, maybe or like Callaway or Harris. Like it was ridiculous. I mean, Breeze went off and like both Kamara and Thomas had pretty underwhelming games. I think they had massively underwhelming games. I think they both had little snowflakes next to them. So that's like the concern. And while that concern exists for a team like Tampa, like Tampa's just so much cheaper. And I think I have maybe a little more confidence in the condensed target share at Tampa. Like it's not a highly condensed, but to me, I mean, New Orleans is all over the map. I mean, Taysom Hill could be getting touchdowns. New Orleans is really tough to project who is going to be the beneficiary of, an achieved high total, and for that reason, I think they become difficult to stack up. So
You could always take a shot. You could always take a shot. $1 million, $10, $20 in a dream. You could find Stewart, the king of correlation, at advancedsportsanalytics.com. And if you're listening to this today on Thursday, that correlation tool, go check it out. It's gonna be free. You could go there, go to the site, use it for the Titans and the Colts showdown. Which, I mean, obviously you could use it for the Thursday, Monday, or whatever slate they're on, and see if it fits within your process. If you want to use that, and then you could sign up for ASA, or as well as Lineup HQ. Those hand in hand to build your lineups. A Core 4 premium subscription you can get right now, $5 off your first month. Rotogrinders.com/media/ASA. Get that $5 off the FanDuel single entry series, the Manscaped, right? Take care of your balls as well as your lineups. So for Stuart Gibson, I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead. You can find me on Twitter there. This has been the Advanced Sports Analytics Show here on Rotogrinders.com.